You are now tuned into the Bud Brunch.
Pour up, roll up, let's talk. Cheers. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Bud Brunch.
Yes, welcome back. I'm your co-host, Losia.
And I'm your co-host, Ashley.
And you are tuned into another great episode of the Bud Brunch.
Yes.
So, Buds, do us a favor. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go to our Spotify and YouTube channel and hit that like and subscribe button so y'all don't miss another episode. Like our last episode where we sat down and we talked to Mark.
I love Mark. I really love him.
It's so much
such a
fun.
good conversation.
I know.
Yeah.
And it was great to hear his story, even though, you know, there had some ups and downs to his journey of achieving this manufacturing license for Pink Fox edibles.
Yeah, he definitely got into the details. And if y'all want to get into the details, feel free to go back and listen to that episode. But today we are sitting down with Caroline Phillips of National Cannabis Festival.
So excited to hear her story about how she created one of the largest ticketed cannabis events on the East Coast.
Oh yeah,
that's major. That's a big deal, and these have been going on all 10 years of legalization for I-71,
and it gets bigger and better every year.
Yes,
it
so
really
it takes a lot to do that. So we're definitely gonna get the inside scoop of who Caroline is and her journey through this space. So, Buds, go ahead and roll up that J, pour up your can of cocktail, and pull up to the Bud Brunch table where we have Caroline Phillips, who's going to be dropping some dope gems for us.
But before we get into the episode, I see you sipping on something over there in that glass, girl. What you got in your glass?
Well, I spiked my little juicy juice with something quite delicious. And I want to share with you guys.
Okay.
Oh, what's in your glass?
It's your boy Hollywood,
And it's your girl, Bruce from Frolic Brains.
and we are rocking with the Bud Brunch.
Where we pull up, roll up, let's talk.
All right, buds, it's time to get into what's in your glass. The part of the show where we sip, sample, and spill on the latest cannabis and cannabis-infused treats. From flower to edibles, drinks to dabs, we're putting our taste buds to the test and letting y'all know what's really hitting and what's getting passed.
Want to be in our glass?
You know you want to.
If your product hits, whether it's drinkable, smokable, or snackable, we just might feature it on What's in Your Glass. Slide into our DMs at the Bud Brunch and let's toast to that.
Cheers. What is that over there sitting on the table? Is that a needle?
Yes, and I'm about to inject my drink with some of this. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a needle.
It's
not
a syringe.
It's not that type of a show.
It's not that type of party. This is a cute little syringe, though, so you can actually measure out how much you want.
It's a hospitality syringe for like samples of liquids. But it looks like a needle, but it's far from that. It's actually got a magical potion in it that's made by District Elixir.
I love her packaging. Like, first of all, the syringe is amazing because you can dose out exactly how much you want.
How much you want, and it's not a mystery. It's clearly labeled.
Know your dose, everybody. Okay, know your dose. But even beyond the measurements, she has the terpene profile, the cannabinoid profile. Like, talk about the entourage effect. You can.
Now, did you know that Maryland is the only state that's legally has to disclose terpene profiles?
That's smart, though. That's so smart.
But like, why is not the rest of the industry not doing that?
Follow suit, y'all.
As a medical cannabis science program graduate, how important
it is
the terpenes are when it comes to
how you feel, the effects. Yeah, absolutely.
So shout out to District Elixir for sharing that information.
She went up above and beyond. Well, we'll check in with you later on the episode and see how you feeling.
Dropped a couple of these in my juice
from this magical potion. All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tea with Ashley, your weekly pour of what's hot in cannabis culture, medicine, industry buzz, and the headlines that's got everybody talking. Let's get into it. So unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you know that World Pride is coming to DC this weekend. And y'all know the city is going to be lit. We're talking an estimated 2 to 3 million people taking over the city, celebrating love, identity, and community. But let me tell you about the tea that's really brewing. Sasha Colby, the season 15 winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, is dropping her own cannabis line, Sasha Colby Kush. So cute. And it's not just some throwaway celeb collab. This is a statement. Sasha's partnering with Flamer, an LGBTQ plus cannabis brand, to bring you an indica hybrid pre-roll infused with bubble hash. That's right, grown on small New York farms and crafted for relaxation, creativity, and pure vibes. But what makes this different from the gazillion other celebs hopping into the weed world? Because in an industry that's historically been dominated by cis men, Sasha's stepping up and making space for queer voices. She's making sure cannabis culture reflects all of us, not just some of us. It's about representation, y'all. It's about shaking it up on who gets to be in this industry and who gets to benefit from it. And she's dropping this just in time for Pride, aligning the power of cannabis with the power of visibility and acceptance. So whether you're hitting up the Pride events this weekend or supporting from home, remember that Sasha's not just making weed, she's making history. That's your pour for this week. Stay lifted, stay tuned, and I'll catch you next time on Tea with Ashley, where I spill the tea and spark the convo. Now go sip on that. All right, buds, can y'all give me a minute? A medical minute, that is. I'm here to shed new light on what's happening in the world of medical cannabis and to set the record straight on the myths, the facts, and everything in between. Now listen, how many times have you walked into a dispensary and they hit you with that sativa wakes you up and indica puts you to sleep line? Let me tell you, if that's the only thing you're listening to, you're missing the real story. Here's the deal. Sativa and indica, those are outdated classifications that mostly describe how the plant grows, not how it's going to make you feel. But when it comes to effects, that's all about the terpenes and the cannabinoid profiles like THC, CBD, and all the other players. Let me put it this way. If you're looking for that chill, couch lock vibe, or maybe that creative, uplifted feeling, we have to dive deeper than sativa, indica, or hybrid. It's about the mix of terpenes like myrcene, limonene, pinene, and how they interact with cannabinoids in that particular strain. These compounds work together in what we call the entourage effect, where the cannabinoids and terpenes come together to create a unique experience. Think of it like cooking. Same ingredients can make 100 different dishes depending on how you blend them together. So next time somebody tells you sativa equals energy and indica equals sleepy, tell them to come see your girl. And when you're at the dispensary, turn that package over and really check out that terpene profile and the different cannabinoids in what you're about to consume. Because cannabis is more complex than a 2-word label. We've been out here buying weed like we buy coffee, light roast or dark roast, when really it's about the whole recipe. Look it up. This ain't me freestyling. Search terpenes, cannabinoids, and the entourage effect. And if that don't blow your mind, I got more for you next week. That's your dose of facts for this week's Medical Minute with your favorite cannabis educator. Keep questioning, keep learning, and catch me next week for more. And if you want to dive deeper into the medical cannabis topics that matter to you, hit me up at cannabisashley.com.
My name is Jeremy Grove with Last Prisoner Project. Don't miss the next set. Make sure you subscribe to the Bud Brunch on YouTube and Spotify.
She's the force behind the National Cannabis Festival, the biggest ticketed cannabis event on the East Coast, and she's turning advocacy into a whole vibe. From rallying lawmakers on Capitol Hill to curating concerts with legends like Redman and Thundercat, Caroline Phillips is where culture and cannabis collide. We're talking policy, purpose, and the power of the people. Are you ready, buds? Pour up.
Roll up.
Let's talk. Blaze word alert. Our guest doesn't know it, but anytime you hear today's blaze word during this episode,
If you're 21 and over, we need you to spark something or sip your can of cocktail.
cheers. Hit it, sip it, and stay locked in.
This episode's blaze word is NCF.
Welcome.
Hey, Caroline.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This has already been so much fun.
Yes. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm glad it's not raining. We had like a really rainy week leading in, so I think naturally, just because the sun's out today, I'm feeling more positive about the world.
Sunshine.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
how are you guys doing?
we love it when it's warm. I love a good spring in DC, and as we enter into the early summer season, the city just comes alive.
We're in that like magic sweet spot, which is about to end right
Right.
before the mosquitoes all come out. It's like the first day when you're out with your friends and you know it's summer because you feel that sweat drop rolling down your leg and you're like, oh, shit.
The back of your leg, right behind the knee.
But we're here today, and we're so excited to have you, and honored to have you here on to the Bud Brunch. And I think a lot of people, well, most people, they should be if they're hip, are familiar with you as one of the founders of the National Cannabis Festival, an amazing event that has been going on and was started because of Initiative 71. And I'm sure when they Google you, they find out all the wonderful things that you have done. So we kind of want to get into like the ungoogleable stuff. Is that even a word? Ungoogleable.
Ungoogleable. If it's not, it should be a word.
Right.
It should be.
Just to get a little bit personal and just learn some more about the mastermind behind the National Cannabis Festival. So I guess you share with us, like, where are you from? Are you a DC native?
So I grew up here in Washington, D.C. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school in D.C. My mom was a teacher in the Archdiocese, so I grew up with a Catholic school teacher mom.
Really?
I had a very straight into her car, straight into school, straight back into my house kind of a lifestyle.
Wow.
Which was fine and nurturing and all of that. But, you know, I think when I say I grew up with a Catholic school teacher mom, there are some people that are like, oh, got it.
Complete opposite of what I would think, what I expected. And I was like, oh,
Right.
my mom's a hippie,
Right, I was
flower
saying.
child.
You know, she and I have actually never have had a direct conversation about the festival to this day.
What? 10 years later? Almost 10 years
She,
later?
I assume she is fully aware of the festival.
And proud of you,
I
I'm
think
sure.
So you saying she's never attended the
Never
festival?
attended the festival.
Is that by choice? Is it like...
I mean, to be honest, the first couple of years, I think I was really being protective of her. She's a school teacher.
Yeah.
Those
The
first
stigma.
couple of years, you know, things were just real different in DC.
Right.
And you never know. Just people are weird. I just didn't want my mom somehow getting in trouble because I was working in cannabis. And, you know, she's not just a school teacher, but again, she's like an archdiocese school teacher. So I just wanted to make sure I kept her very separate from that. And I do have like a healthy fear and respect of my mother. So
I think we all do.
Right.
we should all.
Right, definitely.
But no, you know, I know that she knows about it. We've never spoken the full name of the event to each other. She knows
insane
when
to
it
me.
happens. I assume she's run into like a news story about it.
Yeah.
Of course.
She had to.
Right.
You know, she did ask me a couple of weeks ago if she can help. She's like, you know, I'm free this summer. And I'm just trying to picture me in festival mode with like my mom nearby, and it overwhelms my brain to think about. Just like, you know, I'm usually like barking directions. I can't imagine I by mistake I'm like, get over there. I'm like, oh, sorry, mom, didn't mean that to you.
I heard Beyonce's mom say that she did that. Like Beyonce was like, or Beyonce's mom was like, she can be a little mean. I'm like, to her mom, she was like, Beyonce's in work mode. When she's in work mode, it doesn't matter who you are.
And I'm sure your mom would understand.
Now she would. You know, even to be honest, my big sister, the first 2 years I was doing the festival, she really didn't talk to me.
Oh.
She's a neuroscientist,
Okay.
PhD, and she was really concerned that I was promoting something that was like a danger to public health. It has been really exciting to see her slowly evolve.
Nice.
We both agree that everything in moderation is good.
Right.
I'm not always someone that's going to do things in moderation, but I do agree that everything in moderation is good.
Right.
And, you know, I think that she's come around. She started to see the science. She
That's what I was about to
understands
say.
that you can abuse sugar. You can abuse bacon. You can abuse caffeine.
Anything.
You can abuse cannabis. You can abuse many, many
You
things.
can abuse podcasts.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, so I think that, like, she's started to understand that there really are medicinal benefits and, you know, a bit more open mind.
I think people in general, especially healthcare providers and people in the healthcare industry, they're starting to see the science evolve. And I was just talking about it earlier that 10,000 studies were reviewed in April. It's hard to ignore the science now that everything's evidence-based. So I'm glad that your sister's coming around.
It is pretty cool. Like, I don't necessarily like see her pulling up at the festival and like hanging out in like a smoke tent or anything, you know, but I could see her one day letting me sneak her in through like the back area and like onto the side of the stage, and then she leaves.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe that's where we've gotten with that. My dad, however, he will show up to the festival.
Really?
He shows up every year and he buys things. My favorite thing ever, my dad lives in Arlington. Mm-hmm. I was meeting him for lunch one day and he comes bopping down the street and I was like, I'll be damned. He is wearing a Southeast Ratchet Cakes t-shirt.
Wow.
He has no idea what it means.
Yeah.
He just saw the colors and the image on the front.
And he loved that.
But I am certain that my father, who is pushing 80, is bopping down the street somewhere in DC and occasionally passing some hip kid who is like, yes, sir.
Right.
And he has no idea why
cool
he's getting the nod or the wink. And he's just like, I just really like this shirt. So I was like, all right, Dad. But yeah, I think he has some like gear. He has NCF gear. He wears proudly all over the place. He has Southeast Ratchet Cakes. He has like a Pink Fox cardigan or something like that. But he definitely has some like OG DC cannabis gear. He has a Phone Homie t-shirt for sure.
All right.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Phone
You're an
Homie.
OG if my dad has some of your gear.
Yes. I
We gotta get him a Bud Brunch shirt.
You have to get him he will wear that. He'd probably come on the show, which you don't want to have happen.
Maybe one day that would be great to interview the originators of all these legends that we're having here on the show.
A lot of the ones you just mentioned are guests on the show.
Right.
So that's pretty dope.
It would be really funny to get some parents, like do a panel of parents one day to be like, how did you find out about your child's
their
cannabis
business.
use?
Right.
Like, did you try and stop them in high school? Like, you know, how did you react to it? But I bet there's some funny stories of like people who are parents to like really great entrepreneurs in our community now.
Right.
The parent perspective.
Absolutely.
That might be
But
season
speaking
3.
of the consumption and when, I guess, people find out, what was your first time consuming, or, you know, what was that like, and would you do it again? The same way, like the same way, the same way that you did it the first time.
Absolutely not. So I'd had a couple of unsuccessful attempts at smoking because I didn't know how to inhale.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then a couple of my we were like 13 or 14. It was 4th of July, and my friends were like, there is this thing called the smoke-in. And I was like, let's go to the smoke-in.
You went to that? I've heard of that. I've never went to it though.
It was epic, and like it's something, you know, it really has been an inspiration to me around NCF. Like, much respect to the people who started that. That was the first time I got high though.
At the smoke-in.
Which feels so appropriate. I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There were so many people. I remember being in like line for the porta potties and just really having this like existential moment. Do I bail out? Like, what would happen if I just peed right here? And then having to find my friends. And then I think I like took a little break after that because that was a bit of a scene. I was like, well, that was too much.
Yeah.
And then I think I restarted again, kind of end of high school, a little bit in college, and kind of dove straight in when I left college and ended up moving to Atlanta for a few years.
Nice. Now, but let's rewind for that smoking thing, because what I heard about that was every 420, it was like some mystical place in DC. You had to have like an invite or some sort. Again, this is all like word of mouth. And then, but it's just like everybody's there and they're smoking and it's legal. And it's just like, this is like late 90s, early 2000s, way before the general public had knowledge about them really wanting to legalize anywhere in the world. I mean, anywhere in America outside of California.
So this one was 4th of July. I have heard of that, and I think maybe I was too young to even be allowed into those things, but this was on 4th of July. I found mine the other day, and it had the flyer from the smoking in it. It was just like mind-blowing to look at, but this happened, I want to say like on the Ellipse every year. I was mostly working with my friends to try and like see if we could get cannabis from anyone who was they were all looking at us like, absolutely not, you little pipsqueaks, get out of here. But, on the stage, I remember, and I wonder to this day, was the guy on the stage Keith Strout from Normal? Ooh. But I remember there being speakers from advocacy groups on the stage. Mm-hmm. And, he's been with Normal forever. So I'm like, maybe I saw Keith as like a teenager. Then they would have like some music, like drum circle-y stuff. But really it was just like people sitting in groups, smoking weed. And then you'd hear a whisper like, cops, cops, cops. And everyone would put their stuff down like the cops didn't know exactly what they were walking through.
Smell it.
But yeah, we would go out there just like with food. There was no alcohol out there. It was really peaceful. We were these little kids, and it was just like a very safe place for us to be.
Yeah.
And it was also a really diverse space. I was around colorful and like vibrant community. And that feeling of community around the smoke-in really did stick with me for a very long time. And I think that it is kind of one of the things that really drove me towards NCF.
Yeah.
It's like NCF,
the
BC.
transition, right?
Yeah.
BC.
Before cannabis.
Your experience or first experience with cannabis is a lot cooler than
right. And even the ones we hear, like most people are just like, yeah, somebody brought some weed and we.
No, I mean it sounds like romantic and cool. You have to remember, this is like a anxious 14-year-old girl, slightly lost in a crowd, like sweating through my clothes, looking for a toilet. So now looking back on it, I'm like, wasn't that lovely? But at the time, it was like hectic.
And so, what type of high school did you go to, and what type of crowd were you into? Were you a intellectual? Were you a sports person?
Cheerleader?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. I was all of the things. We'll go back to my mom being a Catholic school teacher. She was pretty serious about where she wanted me to go to school. And at the time, she was not real trusting of DC public schools. So I ended up going to a school called the Field School that at the time was in DuPont Circle, and it was in a townhouse.
Oh, wow.
So I was in a class of 30 students. So that's what I mean when I say it was all of the things, because when you're in a class that small, you can't really be an asshole to anyone.
Right.
You can't.
No.
You can't be that cool. There are 30 of you. In fact, your whole school is like the school for not cool kids, to be quite honest.
Right.
So yeah, we were a bunch of like weird teenagers, very artsy high school. I think because it was a very artsy high school, and I'm not necessarily an artsy person in kind of the traditional, like I don't paint or take photos.
You just create dope events.
That's it. But I think it really gave me a chance to excel academically just because of their different approach to learning. And I'll give the Field School a little shout out. At least when I was there, when it was just in this one little townhouse in DuPont Circle, what they wanted to do was make kids experts in fields, so different fields of study.
Okay.
Ooh, that's unique.
Yeah.
So it was just like a very different way of learning, and I don't know, maybe because I didn't have like this kind of rigid curriculum, it let my brain explore in ways that, probably did help me when I was trying to figure out NCF.
Yeah.
But did you ever want to go to a public school, like a large or bigger school?
Oh my God, yeah. In high school, I like pretty much exclusively hung out with kids that were at Wilson or BCC. There were just more boys. I'm like, we have like 14 boys in this class. This is not going to work.
I don't like none of them.
I have to be, I don't like any of them, and I have to be friends with all of them. Like, how's this going to work?
Right.
So yes, I, would go and try and poach the Utes from other schools. Just like hang out at the other schools. The other schools were exciting. They kind of got in trouble.
Right.
They did stuff. At Field, we didn't really get in trouble. We were too small. The parents had a phone tree that my mom was probably the leader of. They knew where we were.
Right.
But yeah, when we went and hung out with the kids at other high schools, that's where we found some good times and a little bit of good trouble.
Good trouble.
And what took you to Atlanta? I think that's where you said you were.
Yes. So when I finished college, I didn't have a job, and I didn't really have a good plan.
And what was your major?
I majored in English because I didn't have necessarily a plan, but I just really like writing and I really like reading. So that seemed like a good way to go. A friend of mine from college had a cousin with a house in Atlanta, and he was like, you could go and live with my cousin in his house in Atlanta. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I jumped in my car, I drove down, I got a job. I worked at the front desk of a day spa. And then I became like a manager there. But yeah, I spent a couple of years living in Atlanta in what I feel like it was a real golden age for Atlanta. It was, you know, it was like T.I. and Pimp Squad Click and like Magic City at its peak.
Yeah.
MJQ, if you have visited Atlanta and you know about MJQ, you know it was like a real era down there. Masquerade. It was a time to be alive. Yeah.
So did that influence any of the work that you do now, or like how did that help you like to, I guess, navigate like this? Because this is entertainment.
So I lived with two guys when I lived in Atlanta, which is its own ridiculous story.
It's like Three's Company the other way.
It was
The other way.
just bonkers. So I lived with these two young men, all in the same age group, and one of them really wanted to be a club promoter. Mm-hmm. So we would just like go to all of these parties with him, and then he was trying to promote his own parties, and I was like trying to help him figure that out. And so I think that started my brain sort of just thinking about why people go to things and what they're looking for. But I wasn't really interested in being a club promoter. I left Atlanta after a couple of years, came back up to DC because I thought that since I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I should maybe go to grad school. That felt like the right thing to do.
Of course. Another degree.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just keep going back to school. It wasn't that linear, though. I did a year post-grad at Howard, which was great. And then I went on and got a job at Georgetown because I heard about how if you work at the universities for a certain amount of time, you can get a free degree. And that matched my budget.
Smart.
Nice. Yeah.
Very
So
smart.
I grabbed my master's degree from Georgetown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the master's?
My master's is in public relations and corporate communication. And the best class I have ever taken at that school is taught by a man named Michael Long, who you guys can Google. Mm-hmm. He teaches a persuasive writing class that changed my life. Without that class, there would be no National Cannabis Festival.
How so?
I had $0 when I started the festival, and I started it from my couch in my apartment by the Stadium Armory Metro. Mm-hmm. And when I say like there was no money to start a festival, so I had to write a lot of letters to a lot of people, Events DC, council members, just local business owners, to get them to just sign on to say that they support the idea. And then I had to write to a lot of people that we know that I didn't know at the time and be like, you know, could you come and like be part of this? We can like start a whole thing here. Mm-hmm.
This was pre-Chat GPT, so this was all your writing before the...
Yeah. She had a degree to back that up.
Right.
Got to flex that degree.
Yes.
Seriously, it took me, you know, however many different degrees to get there, but I finally found like the degree in the one class that I was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I needed.
What do you think prepared you for the no's?
I think it's just really self-started, this whole thing. So there are a lot more no's than yeses. And I think at a certain point I realized that every single no I get gets me one no closer to a yes.
That was a gem.
So, you know, it's just like, you keep telling me no, someone's eventually going to tell me yes. So it's becoming like a talk to more and more and more people.
I don't want to switch gears. We're going to get into a little bit of the, I guess, behind the scenes of I-71. Where were you when I-71 became legal? Like, were you part of any of like the festivities that they had?
This is a really funny story too. The night that Initiative 71 was voted on in DC, I, by mistake, threw like an Initiative 71 watch party basically at Meridian Pint in Petworth, or like Columbia Heights, Petworth. I don't know if either of you were there.
By mistake.
Yes, this was this was not like an intentional thing. Here's what happened. My friend Brandon owns DC Brow Brewing Company. They had recently released their beers, and Meridian Pint is one of the bars that was carrying them. So I'd been to the DC Brow launch party there, and I'd met the owners there. And around that same time, I got my first medical cannabis card, started going to Metropolitan Wellness Center in Eastern Market, and I'd become friends with the general manager there. And she and I were just like talking one day, and I said to her, I was like, you know, it's really cool having this card now. I also told her I don't always buy from you guys. She was fine with that. And I was like, but you know, I've started noticing people like that I kind of recognize coming in and out of here. like, could we like have a happy hour or something, like where we can get to know each other? And she was like, oh, that would be fun. And then we realized that this vote was coming up, and we were like, oh, well, maybe we could invite some of the advocacy groups and do like a silent auction or something to raise money for them, since they've been working on this. And I bet a lot of the customers would appreciate it. So that's what we set out to do. But because I think it was one of the only kind of formally organized programs, all of this press showed up. And then Adam Eidinger and like the DCMJ folks and just other advocates were there. And suddenly I was in the middle of like a party where it was like a 1 out, 1 in kind of thing.
It was packed.
It was packed. And I'm shuttling people like Adam and Luke and people up to do press interviews. That night was the first time that I guess I saw this interest in cannabis and this curiosity. And also this willingness of people to come out from their houses to gather to celebrate this thing. So it was just like this really exciting night, and I was just so happy that we got to do it. But I still didn't really have any intention. I wasn't like, I'm going to be a cannabis event planner. I had a full-time job working in human rights at the time. It was just like, oh, that was really fun. Let me know if you guys need any help down the line.
So all of these formative things kind of happened that just pieced together the power that is National Cannabis Festival now, essentially.
Yeah.
But you had some work in advocacy prior to getting into cannabis. Like, how did you get into advocacy work?
So my advocacy work, I want to say, pretty much started right when I moved back to DC from Atlanta. And that's because I started working on a lot of international issues when I was working at Georgetown. That's how I got the free degree, was working on international issues. Through my work at Georgetown, I also became their deputy director of protocol and events. So I started producing their international programs at a pretty high level. I went from there to work at the DC Public Education Fund, where I learned a heck of a lot about what was happening here in our city. And then I moved on from there and started working in human rights for an organization named Human Rights First. And that really tied all of these bits and pieces together for me. I had this background in foreign affairs. I'd seen the way that lack of social services and lack of resources was impacting kids in our city. And now we're looking at working with refugee populations who don't have access to resources, who don't have access to good education. And I started to become familiar with folks in cannabis advocacy, one of whom was my neighbor, Bob Kopecki. He worked for an organization called Marijuana Policy Project. And through Bob, that was the first time that I realized that there were people in suits who would go to Capitol Hill to lobby. Because remember, I grew up on the smoke-in. So I was like, they get on stages and they wave flags. And they engage in civil disobedience. And like, I knew Adam Eidinger, so I knew all about the civil disobedience side. But I hadn't really encountered this professional lobby.
And this just happened to be your neighbor.
Yeah, my next door neighbor.
It's crazy how stuff like that works.
And we threw these epic front lawn parties together. I mean, these things were amazing. Almost mini festivals, if you will. But, you know, through Bob, I became familiar with the existence of all these other groups. And through people with these other organizations, I started to attend the occasional policy event if I could get a free conference pass. Do you guys remember when Initiative 71 first became law and there was suddenly like a bunch of conferences that came to DC?
Comfy Tree, High Comfy Tree, yes.
So funnily enough, I produced the first Comfy Tree conference. They like found me through Metropolitan Wellness Center.
Wow.
But I came away from that event and I was unhappy.
Yeah, I heard.
I was
There was a lot of
unhappy.
It was so expensive.
bad business going on.
I looked around that room because I came in as the event planner. They were doing their own, you know, the sponsorship and all that stuff. And they're like, we need you to handle the stage. And I just remember standing on the stage and being so perplexed. In the lobby, which anyone could go into, if you remember, there was like an exhibit area.
That's where I met Phil Nomi.
Amazing diversity. Lobby, diversity. You walked past like the magic entrance line into the speaker room and it was all older white men.
Because you had to pay to get back there.
Right, and here was my problem with it. When they asked me to organize a speaker stage, who did I tap? My neighbor Bob and all of his advocacy friends. I got a full day lineup of all of these incredible advocates to come out and speak on the stage. Then I think the tickets were like $800, something like that.
Insane.
I paid like $3.
They barely paid me for my work on it, which at the time I was kind of okay with because I was so excited to be involved. But then they just left. And I was like, you're not going to make a donation. I mean, they just
do nothing
they just
for the
sent
community.
3 people to speak on your stage for the day. People paid to see those people speak. You're not going to make a donation? No. But, okay. And then they called me up to do the second one, and I was just like, I'm good. And I, no...
Good for you.
And, like, no hate on the organizers. They were doing something brand new that hadn't been done before. They may not have known the offense that they caused in the community at the time. But there was that event. There was, like, a High Times event came that had, like, 10 by 10 booth inside, $4,000. There were all of these big programs that came that I couldn't afford to go to unless I was working or cruising on a free pass from one of the members of the advocacy groups. And I thought that was really weird. And I sat down, I was talking to Bob, I talked to my friend Khaleesi and her boyfriend at the time. I talked to just a bunch of my friends, and I was like, surely there has to be a way to make this information accessible that doesn't cost $799. And that's where the concept of just a larger format event with many more people started to form. And that's kind of where the idea for the festival started to percolate.
You saw a problem and you solved it. And that's usually where great ideas come from.
Well, I think we're still solving it.
Still solving it.
We're in the process still in process, but we are working on solving it with our whole community. So
but I'm sure you get approached too a lot of times too when it comes to like the festival and people have their ideas about how they can contribute or make it better. What's one of the craziest things that somebody has honestly like come to you and be like, let's do this, and you're just like, you don't know anything about events, you don't know anything about like how this works.
It's really funny. We get a lot of liquor companies that contact us, and this actually might really surprise people. We get a lot of liquor companies that are like, come sponsor your festival. And last year was the first year we've ever had any liquor at the event, but I'm not really that excited to bring liquor into NCF, and it's not for reasons that people may even think of. I call myself like the chief liability officer on festival day. I worry. My job is to keep people from hurting themselves for like 12 straight hours. I'm looking at people like, please don't hurt yourself. And I know how hard we have all worked to get the respect for the work that we do. And one of my like most pronounced nightmares is the 21-year-old who comes in wasted from drunk brunch. And now we're serving liquor at the festival, and she gets herself another, like, a vodka drink, and we, just running around, and then she takes a single puff of a joint and is sick everywhere.
It's too much.
And what do people think she's sick from? Cannabis. And what does that make us all look like? A bunch of people that can't control ourselves. We have very few medical incidents at NCF, and because the festival is going to be in the summer this year, we're not having any liquor on site.
Nice.
And we just want people to be safe. So that is the thing that I think a lot of people have come at us with, like, we could do this really cool, like, Hennessy activation, or why don't we do this? And I'm like, we are, unfortunately, the cannabis market and our community is still not viewed in a way that we can combine a whole bunch of things in here and have people be able to differentiate what's what.
Right.
So...
And especially since people are out to have a good time, like that's when people definitely kind of pass their limits. They know that for themselves, because they want to enjoy in the festivities. And I think that that's very responsible for you as an organizer to, consider what's going to happen after the fact, or even at the event that is not going to be a good look.
I mean, press is there. Like I even worry about. Like someone maybe handing out a batch of brownies that had a bad egg in it, and we have a bunch of press who's watching people get sick on the grounds, and you're just like, no, it really wasn't. It's
similar. How they'll spin it, right? Of course.
Yeah, so
they're never going to be like.
We're just waiting for something.
Well, we're very protective of the reputation of our community, because honestly, we reflect each other. If people think that our local cannabis community is somehow bad or dangerous or malicious in some way, they're not going to want to come to a festival, which is a display of our community. And in the same way, if people think that the festival is dangerous or bad, that ends up reflecting on the businesses that are there. So we try and be really protective of everyone's reputation, especially the nonprofit groups. We built the festival on the back of their work. So if we do things that somehow dishonor their efforts around, safe and responsible as we can be.
Yeah.
I think that would be really bad.
What is one of the best things that somebody's approached you with and that you've actually incorporated into the festival that you think has made the experience so much better for the people that come?
Well, two things. I think the first thing is pretty much everything our exhibitors come to us with. I tell my team, I'm like, we get the stage set, we get the fence line up, we hire the security. But ultimately, if the people in our community are a bunch of duds, the vibe inside the gate is going to be so lame.
Yeah.
So I'm always shocked in the little time that I get to kind of walk the exhibitor village. It's always so cool just seeing the way people express their brands in their spaces, seeing the way people show our attendees different ways to engage with the plant. But one of the things that has happened over the past couple of years that has just been like a great discovery for me and my team has been what will now be the Sacred Medicine Pavilion this year. But it was a psychedelics pavilion.
Yeah.
And having Reggie and the team from Oakland Hi-Fi, Reggie has DMV roots. He lives in Oakland right now. But having them really come in and help us shape that conversation and help establish NCF as a space for those kind of conversations has been really cool. And I think it's the first time that we've really invited experts in. I don't really know much about psychedelic medicine. I have enjoyed mushrooms myself, but I don't really know the science. I am not as educated as I am about cannabis. So it's been exciting having them come in to kind of help us learn how to educate our community.
Sacred Medicine, I love that name.
Yeah, so it's Sacred Medicine Pavilion, which I think is really cool and sort of expands what we can do in that space.
Yeah, so I was going to say, is NCF is, I guess, welcoming of the psychedelic community. How far do you guys want to go with the psychedelic part of the festival? Thank you.
I think, we want to make sure that we are educating people on things that are becoming larger and larger presences in our culture. We also have naloxone trainings and harm reduction trainings.
Yeah, I'm just excited to hear about the naloxone training because working in outreach, that's something that we do every day is provide Narcan to the community. It is so needed, especially with the opioid crisis is going on. So that's a wonderful piece.
Well, and I guess you were asking how far we were going to go.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I think that one of the things that I've been seeing, we know these things that psychedelics and mushrooms are showing up at parties and events all over the city. It's happening. I don't think there's enough education out there about it. I just don't think people really know what they're getting into, whether or not they have a good time, and maybe they're not getting all of the benefit out of it, or maybe they're having a bad trip because they weren't sure what they were doing going in. So I would like to continue creating spaces where we can have those kinds of conversations, which is one of the reasons that we switched from psychedelics to sacred medicine.
Yeah.
Kind of more of just a plant medicine approach. So all plant medicine is welcome, but we will forever be the National Cannabis Festival.
Right.
But I do think that we're always going to make space to talk about the things that are present in our community and the different ways that people are self-medicating or finding ways to relax. So it will always be part of what we talk about.
So how do you, I guess, deal with the naysayers or people that are like, oh, you've turned your back on the I-71 community, or you're not being true to the community that helped kind of get NCF where it is?
I mean, to those folks, I'd say that probably the licensed stores have felt the same way for the past 8 years of the festival. Yes. But also NCF is what it is. It is a reflection of our community. For 8 years, we had a thriving I-71 community, and NCF reflected that. Going into year 9, things are changing. We're all going to see how that changes at the festival. I have no idea. But we will always be a reflection of what is happening in DC. And I think that's what it's supposed to be.
So currently,
yeah,
we are in a licensed market and we are dealing with licensed businesses. Absolutely. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think that's another reason why we are doing this is because we spent 10 years kind of in limbo. And now things are For
It's
real.
one of those
Right.
things,
They're
like,
changing, and we
you
have
gotta
to-
be careful what you ask for, because, we've been banging on the walls
Yeah,
for this
look-
for 8 years.
And now it's here.
Anyone that thinks that, and this has always been funny to me over the years, but anyone that thinks that as a business owner, I'm interested in keeping anyone out of my event is nuts.
Yeah.
Right.
In the ideal world, everybody has a license that wants one, and everyone can participate at my event.
Absolutely.
Or no one has a license because no one needs one, and everyone can participate.
That would be wonderful.
So, again, it really goes back for me to responsibility and protecting. We are always going to do the thing that is responsible. And right now, DC has a set of laws that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
And now we need to try and work as well as we can within those, the way we worked as well as we could within the I-71 framework. So it's going to be an exciting year. I have no idea what's about to happen to you. I'm like,
I know, but everybody wants to know. They're like, what? They changed the date. What's going on?
What is going on?
have you, chunks of RFK have actually been started to be taken down.
I heard that they've gutted out the whole bottom area already.
I am telling you that in April, I was like, if I don't see large pieces of wall come down, I'm going to have to
All this for
But we
nothing.
were just talking about the other day, but I was like, well, I drove right by it. It's still there. Is it going to be there in July? Is that what it's like? Is
so
it going
I
to
know
be
that
there?
they've started taking
still?
down chunks of the interior, and the reason that we weren't there in April is apparently there's just a lot of construction shit happening around, and they already have you guys going on this 5-mile hike to get to the festival gates. It was going to be even worse, and we were going to lose a ton of attendee parking.
Okay.
So moving to July just cleared the deck a little bit better for us. How much stadium we will have, I haven't the foggiest idea. But I will feel a lot better about all of this if I need to see a chunk
Half
of
of
wall
it
down.
gone.
Yeah,
right.
I need
So
to
you want to be
see.
able to see through it and be
I want to see a hole through. I want to be able to see into the stadium, or I'm going to be like, what was all this about? Why are all
Right.
these? Yeah, why is all this construction stuff here and nothing's happening?
But they've confirmed that the Commanders, that's going to be the new home for the Commanders. What does that change? Does that change anything, do you think, for the foreseeable future for the
I imagine
location of
the
the
Commanders
festival?
have been saying that. And the city has been saying that we're going to have this great state-of-the-art stadium with all these grounds around it, and it's not just going to get used 8 games a year. Well, NCF is here to take up a couple more days of the year
Okay.
and pour money back into our community.
Nice.
So I hope that they remember that exactly what DC residents voted for.
Right.
And I hope they remember that if they're going to make the stadiums home in our city, that they need to be real respectful
For the
of
people that live
who
in this
here.
city. Yeah, absolutely.
Because NCF certainly has. I think you've included the community around you as much as possible.
We try. I was saying to Nisha on my team the other day that one of the cool things that's happened in the past 3 years is we feel a lot less like we're forcing the programs to happen. Everybody sign up to do this. Everyone sign up to do that. People have really developed their own kind of traditions around NCF.
Yeah.
Whether it's an attendee who, I don't know, goes to real high brunch before they come to the festival with their friends, or whether it's Phil on his scooter or skateboard rolling around the grounds with his flag, or whether, whatever it is, people have their thing now.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool seeing people know how to NCF.
Yeah.
It's like how they do their day at NCF. They know how to
Yeah.
NCF.
I love that.
No
That's
two
a
people do it the
hashtag.
same, yeah.
How do you NCF? Hashtag.
Exactly.
And one of the favorite things I love about the festival, and it's not because I also got an award, but because I think it's a great thing.
Sure it isn't.
That you do, the Community Changemaker Award that you guys give out every year. For those who are not familiar with why that started, can you kind of share it with us about that?
Yeah. So when I was starting the festival, I told you I talked to a lot of really awesome people in my friend group. And one of those people was my very best friend, Kevin Cross. He was an OG DC cannabis community member. He had What's Poppin' was his edibles brand, and he would be at all of the pop-up parties. You guys remember, of course you remember, the parties that were
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that was a time.
Yeah.
So he was at all of those events. Kevin was a really special person. He was constantly helping me, constantly helping our team. He ran the printing shop in the Senate building. So by day,
Nice.
he was one of the blue shirts in the Senate, you know, getting there at 4 a.m., doing the engravings for all of the committee plates, around all of these powerful people who probably didn't notice him,
Right.
you know, just walking in and out, doing stuff. And then in the evenings, he was my buddy Kevin. We would smoke blunts at his apartment. When he got into edibles, I would sit there smoking blunts, watching him package stuff. Like, the entire hell is going on in here? I really like the whole thing in the beginning where everyone was like becoming a baker at home. It like blew my mind. I was like, this is like, what are my guy friends doing right now? Like suddenly they're all like at the store buying Rice Krispie treats in mass quantity. This is weird. And they're like putting little delicate stickers on the outside of packaging. So I would go over there and watch him do that. And, you know, he would help me with anything I needed. He, when we were starting NCF, because he had access to this little printer, would occasionally get little things handled for me.
Nice.
I still have a bunch of the stuff that he printed for me. In fact, the best thing he ever printed for me were these NCF stickers that we got made for the festival that when he gave them to me, they turned out to be about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. We don't know what happened, but he printed them on the wrong, everything went wrong. Yeah. So I have these itty bitty NCF stickers still to this day. But in 2017, Kevin was killed taking out the trash in his apartment building.
Oh my gosh. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I don't mean to take this to like a dark place, but
It's okay.
It's real.
yeah, it's in DC we have a lot of unsolved homicides. But if you flip through the unsolved homicides, you will see that they are primarily black men. And Kevin is among those men. Unfortunately, I think that his affiliation with our community and with like edibles and things like that at the time really muddied what MPD was looking for. And I don't think they tried very hard. But Kevin was like a giver. And he showed up for us so much.
It's okay. Take your time. Take your time.
It's okay. You can tell that you really love him. Yeah.
And it really broke our team when he died.
Yeah.
And it really broke me. But we didn't want his death to be in vain because he brought so much light to all of us. And we wanted people to remember that there really are helpers in the community. And you hear about helpers and you're told to look for helpers. And Kevin was a helper. And he was totally cool not being, you know, the star of the show. He didn't need any of that. He just really wanted to help his friends. So for me, he's always been like an unsung hero in my life. I don't think he ever got the credit that he deserved for all of his kindness and everything that he did for everyone in our community. And there are people who remember him and know like what a guy he was. But we wanted to create the Community Changemaker Award because there are a lot of helpers in the community. You know, Losia, you're one of the helpers. Minna has been a recipient.
Yeah.
Flex Matthews has been a recipient. You know, we've had a lot of helpers, and we wanted just to make sure that the helpers can keep helping. So, yeah, it means that each year we get to talk about Kevin for a couple of minutes, and we
keep
get
his
to
legacy
remember the
alive.
light moments about him,
Yeah.
not the totally unfair way that he lost his life.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Caroline.
Yeah. Thank you for being open and honest and talking. You know, this is not the first time on the Bud Brunch that, you know, we have to talk about loss because our community, the I-71, the cannabis community has suffered so much loss over the 10 years, and some of the greatest people really in our community that have really helped bring people together that we have lost. So shout out to Kevin and the awards that you get to give out now
In his honor.
in his honor. And again, I was honored to be on that National Cannabis Festival stage to accept the award, and it was just to be recognized, because I didn't think anybody was watching what I was doing. So when I heard that I was only even on your radar, and I was just like, yo, she's got so many other things going on. Like nobody's watching me in these pumpkins.
Did I ever share your nomination form with you? I should share your nomination with you one day.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
dude.
I mean, that's what's so lovely. Is like people write
it's a peer nominated award. It's not like she, picked my name out of a hat and was like, Losia, that's the girl. Let's go.
No, we had to read the stories and ask the people who nominated you, why is this person so special? But I mean, I think for me, it just lets me really think about Kevin a lot during that time of the year, but in a really good way, because it's oh yeah, Kevin would totally hang out with, he'd totally hang out with Losia. He loved Minna, so it's would he hang out with this person? Would this be someone he would want to help out? Okay, they can get the award.
That's the criteria. Yeah. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
I love that. So are nominations open for that, or how does that work if somebody wants to recognize a person in there who's doing some great work for their community?
We will be opening nominations again probably about a month before the festival. Everything is just on the weirdest calendar this year. I have severe calendar disorientation. No, I've been in just a flat out panic since January, because I've been feeling when March hit this year, I was a wreck for a week, and everyone was you still have 4 months, and I was
because you're not at the numbers,
right?
Yeah, but I still have these total panics, and now I'm just disoriented because it should be after the festival, but it's just not.
But it's not giving that post-pandemic, remember the August?
That was it was we all came crawling out of a cave.
Of the holes.
Holding our COVID tests to try and attend a pot festival.
It's okay, you could smoke with me.
Can you even believe that happened?
Are we passing the J or are we not passing the J?
That whole event was it didn't happen. It was for this weird 8-hour period. Everything was normal, just within this fence line.
Right.
But the whole thing was so not normal.
Yeah.
It was also 98 degrees, and my body was a biology experiment. By the end of the day, I think I was peeing brown. Sorry, listeners. It's true, though. I didn't pee all day because I was just, sweating out any liquid I had. Yeah. Can't let that happen again, ever.
That is funny.
So walk us through a festival day. How do you prepare for the day, the week, or what are your rituals that keep you together and allow you to again make it through the day? Aside from having a great team, which obviously you do, you have an amazing team to be able to pull this off and grow it to what it is right now. But what is a get ready with Caroline day?
Get ready with Caroline for NCF day. Oof. I start hydrating. Seriously, I start hydrating about a week before, serious hydration, because there's a solid chance I'm not going to be able to stop to do anything during the festival day. My team and I spend a lot of time on site building out the site, so it takes us a full week to get it built. So by that time, you really feel at home with it. But the morning of the festival generally starts, around 3 or 4 a.m. We're getting up. Packing up anything that hasn't been taken to site already and taking it to the site. I will go and set myself down in a trailer and start to just gather all of the permits and insurance documents and tax documents ready for any of the inspections that
Caroline, we are not trying to hear that. I am
this
so
is the
sorry.
exciting shit.
Really? I'm what do you do you wear special
serious.
Makeup on that day? Do you put on?
You guys have seen me. I'm in my staff t-shirt. I have a baseball hat on usually because my hair's doing something bad. I probably sweat through my clothes several times, but I'm dressed exactly the same as our gate staff and my staff. You cannot tell me from anyone else by design, because we have a super all hands on deck mentality. I don't care if it is someone needs to run a wristband to the main gate. If everybody else is busy, I'm going to make that run to the main gate. So it's not real romantic.
And so then what does a day outside of the festival look like? What are the fun days? Let's get ready with Caroline on a day where she's not doing festival work. What are your favorite spots to go to in DC? happy hour? Do you dance? Do
I
you
spend a
watch
lot
plays?
of time at DC Brow Brewing Company, actually, which is weird. But I run up there almost every morning, and that is where my gym is. I spend a lot of time with like training friends and doing physically active things.
Okay.
What's your favorite physical activity?
My favorite like little project of a physical activity is called a Ragnar Relay. In the case of what I'm doing this fall, I've done it once before this way. So usually it's a group of 12 people running 200 miles. But this past year, I got together with 5 other women and we cracked out 200 miles by ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
So we are training for an overnight 2-day run coming up this fall. It is super fun. I will tell you right now that there is no feeling better than popping a 20 milligram gummy and leaving on a 3 a.m. run and being convinced that you are flying. And in fact, repeat, like, I'm flying right now. Yeah, but no, I really love, like, physical activity. I really love running. I really love team sports. I think that's pretty much why I love NCF. It's like a team sport to me. We all wear the same T-shirt.
Yeah.
We have a little pep rally before. We have assignments. Like, at the end of the day, you know, we get to cheer because we made it to the goal line.
Yeah.
Or get to lick our wounds because a tsunami blew through. You know, it goes in all directions.
I had no idea Caroline was a fitness girly. Okay.
Well, I was about to say you look great. That's why I was like, well, she's got something.
Well, thank you. I've really found my sweet spot is cannabis and fitness together.
Okay, look at that.
For anyone that has a little trouble getting started, there is nothing more motivating than saying, I'm going to smoke this joint, then I'm going to go do this thing.
Yeah.
Then when I get back, I'm going to smoke a
again.
victory joint. Just got to make it fun. Yeah.
So, and that's something I learned today is that your mother is from Africa. So I got an African sister in here. When are we, hopefully I didn't miss this, but when are we going to get an African artist? Because you know, Afrobeats is popping right now. What's the South African one? Amapiano is hot. Are we going to see that anytime soon?
I really want that to happen, but we need to talk to some of our brethren.
Okay.
The price tags on the Afrobeats artists are just
wild.
Insane.
Some next level stuff. And I think, you know, something that I need to talk about more loudly, but don't. NCF is an independent festival. We do not have the big backing of like Live Nation or AEG the way most of the festivals that you'll see in our city do.
Yeah.
We are a small business, and I want to remind people of that. NCF is a small business. Yeah. There's no one that's going to come and rescue us if we book an artist, but no one comes to the show. Mm-hmm. There's no one there to rescue us if a tsunami blows through and people are upset about, you know. So like the buck does stop with our team.
Yeah.
And we're working in directions. You know, it's been pretty exciting being able to grow the talent the way we have.
Oh,
it's been incredible to watch that.
I will say that as an independent festival, it is harder to grow the talent because, you know, there's kind of, in the music world, it feels like there's this like jump between sort of affordable artists and then the superstars. And it's like, oh my God. And I feel like the pandemic sort of made that worse. But no, we plan to keep growing and hopefully keep building up better and better lineups slowly but surely. So see what happens next. But Afrobeats artists would be terrific. We just need to...
You guys hear that?
You guys need to all buy tickets.
Give her a reasonable price, artist. Okay, y'all can go make the money elsewhere.
Exactly.
Look at this as a community project, a way to give back to your brothers and sisters that are on the other side of the pond.
Right. What we don't have in cash, we can offer you in cannabis. Like, come on, it'll be lit.
That's
Absolutely,
a good
yeah.
That's a good deal.
Right.
I think so. We're a good time. I think we're a very good time.
Before we wrap up, though, I do know that people listening want to know something about NCF, a little inside scoop. What can we expect to see at NCF this year?
Who can we expect to see?
Or who that we haven't seen before?
Wait, have we had our headliner yet?
We've not done the headliner announcement. That is coming soon.
Okay. Oh, I thought we were going to get a Bud Brunch.
I keep it very close to the heart until all of the ink is dry because I've hurt my own feelings by speaking too quickly before.
Yeah.
So that is coming soon. You know, one of the things that I am really excited about, because I think there's a lot of potential in it for our community, is we're going to be introducing a zero proof bar concept this year. which can include all kinds of plant-based tonics,
Little can of cocktails.
Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, smoothies. I think that especially with a July event, being able to give people, you know, last year we did the big yard bong glasses, but yeah, like a yard bong glass of like watermelon mint juice or something
So
that
refreshing.
makes staying super hydrated super fun. Like, you know, we'll sell whole coconuts out of it. But I'm just really excited about this zero proof bar concept. I'm not like a big drinker myself. So I think that we're going to have some really interesting ways for people to get involved and also for local brands to get involved. There are some new drinks being manufactured in the city. And it's going to be really fun being able to carry some of those and like a lot of different hemp beverages.
It's right up our alley.
Right.
Literally.
And what for the people that have never been to an NCF and this is their first year because they've been hearing about it and they're so excited to come. What are, I guess, a couple of tips that you can give them so they can make the best out of their experience?
Well, first, buy your ticket. It would not be very fun to get there on show day and not be able to get in. I would also recommend arriving early. I think there's a lot to see at the festival. And in order to really have a good time, and this is like a weird thing to say for a music festival, but go online and like look at the different programs happening and write down and make your schedule. Otherwise, you will end up
Lost in the sauce.
a little bit stoned, very lost in the sauce, trying to read your map, but remembering that you said you were going to go to this thing in the grow school. So make a little schedule for yourself. And then make sure that you know, put together your WhatsApp group chat before you get to the festival grounds so you can find your people. But seriously, bring an empty container. We'll have lots of free water stations on site this year.
Nice.
Bring a hat. You want to keep shade. Sunblock. And then bring good vibes. We really are not a bad vibes festival. You know, we don't have fights at NCF. We don't have incidents of violence. So if you're having a crappy day, pack that away or stay home, but come to NCF ready for a great time with incredibly good people.
Yes.
I love.
And we definitely look forward to this year. 10 years of I-71, endless years of wonderful NCF celebrations that we have had and are looking forward to. Thank you, Caroline, for being here. But we almost forgot, where do they get their tickets?
Go to nationalcannabisfestival.com to grab your tickets. You can still grab the early bird price until the headline announcement, which is kind of a good deal. It's like $75 for 2 full days of conference programming, music, exhibitors, activities, all the things.
And I'm assuming social media, National Cannabis Festival?
Yes, so we're National Cannabis Fest on Instagram, and then National Cannabis Festival when we are not being shadow banned on Facebook.
Everybody's being shadow
you might have to dig a little bit hard for us because I have noticed sometimes I go in there,
and you can't find it.
It just doesn't come up.
I thought that was me. I was like, well, did they block me? Like, or like, some businesses don't let you tag them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is another cool thing, though. Like, NCF really has spread by word of mouth because you all know it's impossible to market anything that has to do with cannabis ever. So, go community. Let's keep it going.
Yes. And we're going to keep this conversation going with you with our Puff and Pass.
Yes. All right, y'all. It's time for one of my favorite segments, Puff or Pass. This is where I hit our guests with a few tough choices, and they've got to let us know, are you puffing on it or passing it to the left? Are you ready, Caroline?
I'm ready.
All right, we'll make the first one easy. Puff or pass, solo or group sesh?
I'm going to puff on a group sesh.
Puff on group. So you like to pass the J?
I just like being around people. I like the ritual of passing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. All right. Puff or pass, music while high or TV while high?
Music, puff.
Music. Okay. I expected that.
Do you have like a certain artist or genre of music that you kind of gravitate to when you're in that state?
It definitely rotates. I listened the other day, front to back, The Miseducation of Lauren Hill. I really enjoyed that. I haven't done that in a really long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was nice.
Take it back.
Yeah.
One of my faves.
All right. We know you love to write. So, puff or pass, writing with pen and paper or laptop and phone?
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. Old school.
Are you cursive? Like, do you write in cursive too?
No, and it may be illegible to other people, which feels kind of like a cool secret code. So definitely pen and paper.
Okay. All right, puff or pass, being behind the scenes or front and center on the mic?
Puff behind the scenes.
So you hate being on the stage when you have to go up there at NCF?
I see it more as like I have to do this thing. This is part of the job.
Yeah.
But I like being behind the scenes. I found my power behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten to pick who's gotten to be on the stages, you know, and that's a place where we get to highlight our community and ourselves. So
Nice. All right, and the final one, puff or pass, hosting in DC forever or taking NCF on tour?
both.
But okay, that's
Ooh.
acceptable.
Yeah,
That's acceptable.
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like DC would always be like the flagship
Home base,
festival.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe there's a world in which NCF travels or has a home in another country one day.
Ooh, another country.
Oh, that would be dope.
All right, well, that was puff or pass, where there are no wrong answers, even puffing on both, just real ones. And you definitely passed the vibe check, Caroline.
Thank you, ladies. This was so much fun.
And we had so much fun with you, too.
Let's do this again.
I'm Lisa Scott with Bud Appetit. I'm excited to be part of the Bud Brunch Convo, cannabis, community, and real conversation.
So I see you finished your entire juicy juice over there. How you feeling?
Correction, my magical medicinal potion juicy juice.
Okay.
Just so we're clear.
Okay. And how does that magical potion have you feeling right now?
Well, you know, I didn't take a lot. I hit up one syringe. And so I feel real level-headed, you know, and I feel like I'm ready to take on the rest of my day.
Okay. Well, I mean, one is enough because in that one syringe, you get 22 milligrams of THC. Then you got 2 milligrams of CBD. And she snuck in some CBN.
And so, yeah, like I feel like relaxed, but not like a sleepy relax. I'm still like focused and alert, but the brain, like you said, was this really calm, and I definitely would.
And all the different cannabinoids she has in here. I mean, the label is everything. But what's nice is you get 3 of those syringes in one pack. Yeah. I know
And
that's
I know
right.
I heard that they have different sizes and all different types of stuff. But shout out to District Elixir for sharing this wonderful, magical, medicinal potion with us.
Absolutely. Another amazing Black woman-owned cannabis business.
So, how many cheers would you give this one, actually? Because we're going to talked about the packaging, we talk about the dosage,
The
talked
feelings.
about how it makes you feel. Now, I would say this too. When I put it in my juicy juice, there was no taste.
Oh, that's even better.
So,
I love the effects without.
yeah, I was wondering, like, I was like, Now, I did not raw dog it and put the syringe in my mouth personally. You can do that. Like,
You
slip
raw
it
dog
up
it.
under your tongue. But I wasn't really interested in that. So,
I like a product
but
where
when
you can use
mixing
it in
with the
different
drinks,
ways.
right,
Yeah.
was definitely a great way to go.
And if you do decide to put something under your tongue sublingually, it kicks in a little faster. Just a little side note if you wanted to hit a little quicker.
Right. You want to get there sooner.
Yeah. How many cheers? 1 out of, I'm definitely not giving it a 1 out of 5. I'm sorry. 1 to 5. How many cheers would you give it? Turning it on you.
Well, I'm definitely giving it 5 cheers because, you know, not only did I know what I got, but like I know how it should impact me based off of the details in the packaging.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can choose my dosage really easily and clearly by the packaging, and it was easy to open too. I think that's another thing that when we're dealing with medical cannabis, sometimes they can make it challenging to even access the
Dose.
product.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely, I would recommend 5 shares. How about you?
I'm going to give it 5 as your resident cannabis educator. The amount of information that she gives you about this product is out of this world. So absolutely 5 cheers from me.
Hey. Cheers.
Hey, what's up? This is Lisa. I'm vibing with the Bud Brunch. Pour up, roll up, and let's talk.
Wow, what a great interview with Caroline Phillips.
It was
Festival.
incredible. She really opened up, about her upbringing, her journey, and just building NCF.
Yeah, and while I say all the interviews are great, this one was really special. And I love how authentic that she was in opening up about her experiences, her loss.
It got emotional.
Yeah, it did.
It did, especially, talking about her friend that
Kevin.
passed away. Yeah. And how it inspired her, right? She didn't just stay in that grief.
Right.
It inspired her to make the Changemakers Award.
Yeah.
Something that you were a recipient of.
And I was very honored because it's a peer-nominated award. So it's definitely a reflection, I feel, of how people perceive you in the community. So
Definitely
shout out
deserving.
thank you. Shout out to everybody who's ever received and or been nominated for that.
And I love how she talked about, how NCF is evolving with the times. Our cannabis landscape is changing, and the festival is reflecting that.
Yeah, because the festival is not just about cannabis. It's about DC and the process that DC is kind of going through. So I think that for it to be changing only makes sense because we are in that new era of I-71.
For sure. And I'm so excited that we, the Bud Brunch, will be at NCF this year.
We sure will. We're going to be there on Friday and Saturday. Which
Both
is gonna
nights.
be so exciting. So make sure you guys head over to NCF's website and grab those tickets for July 18th and 19th and meet us there.
Absolutely. But on next week's episode, we are sitting down with Lisa Scott, founder of Bud Appetit and a newly licensed operator in DC's medical cannabis market. She's pulling up to the Bud Brunch table. We talked about her journey from pop-ups to product manufacturing, and she brought the heat. That's it for this sesh, y'all.
I'm your co-host, Losia.
And I'm your co-host, Ashley.
And this is the Bud Brunch, where we do it
For the culture,
for the community,
for the conversation.
Until next time.
bye!
Ready to be a bud?
You know you want to.
Subscribe to the Bud Brunch on YouTube and Spotify, and let's brunch and blaze together.
Cheers!
This episode of the Bud Brunch was hosted and produced by Ashley Stafford and Losia and Ashley. Special thanks to DC Scrogger for donating the equipment that helps bring our voices to you. Music for this episode is licensed and used with permission. You can find those credits in the caption. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.